Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. This is going to be game 2 between Nesh and Tim. Upper right corner we have Nesh starting as the green tier, and bottom left corner we have Tim starting as the red Protoss. This is going. I did not update the map, so hold on. I'm going to update the thing in the background. Clips. You'll get a black screen for a half second. Apologize to all the viewers that don't like random fits of blackness. I don't know how to get rid of that with OBS, unfortunately. Anyway, this is going to be on Eclipse. It is a 1v1 map. It is not Terran favored. I could definitely see Tim knocking Nesh out here. Mostly the reason it is not Terran favored is the propensity for Protoss players to gas steal on this map. Gas stealing and also proxy. In fact, we see a early probe making its way out on the field. Previously I thought, oh, never mind, he's going to hold up short. He's going to drop. Is he just going to go for a 12 Nexus? So pylon short, then making his way out with the probe. There we go. This is, I think this is the timing. Yeah, to go ahead and move it out and grab that gas. What was it, Girthang? I think it was Girthang. Previously, I was thinking, oh, he's going to go, and then he ended up proxying some stuff, and then he followed it up with a gas steal, I believe. And then, or was it Girthang, or was it someone else? Was it versus Pandor? What was going on in that game? Anyway, point being, this time, I believe this is not for any sort of proxy. This is going to be just straight up, go grab that gas. We have a gateway dropping at the natural expansion, by the way. I wouldn't be surprised to see one gate into expand again, potentially. The probe trying to stay out of vision for a bit. Unfortunately, caught in vision right there. Nesh able to secure his gas rapidly. Again, this time, the grab on 11 is not to get that extra gas to go any sort of early drop or push that vulture a little bit more rapidly than usual. This time it was to deny precisely that, to make sure that that probe wasn't able to get additional whatnot done. But anyway, probe still making itself annoying. Nesh getting some base damage on that probe here early. Cross map, another probe down. What was it doing? I think that was just a misrallied probe for a half second. Tim has not grabbed his gas yet, so I think this, never mind, he's grabbing his gas fairly late at 210. I'll be interested to see if he does follow this up with, I wouldn't be shocked to see this turn into 2-gate Dragoon, and basically try to mitigate vulture play in the mid game. I do feel like this map is a little bit less, vultures are a little bit less powerful, and I do believe upgrade Terran a little bit more powerful on this, just because it's easy to protect the natural expansion. It's just kind of a hop, skip, and a jump to grab your third here, and you can just see where piles of siege tanks against these doodad areas. Never sure what to call this, but against the Cruft or holding the high ground here. First zealot away, by the way, to apply pressure on Nesh early. We do have the first two Marines out, third one on the way, and the factory already constructed. The damage probe wants to come in alongside, and Nesh actually with his SCV cross map, I missed this, was able to blockade out the Nexus. SCV takes a shot, but Zealot takes some damage too. Is he going to be able to, it looks like it's just going to be a trade, one damaged guy for another. 3 Marines now out on the field. SCV does get picked off, so that's at least on SCV. But I think that's going to be a dead zealot and a dead probe, and that is not the best. Yeah, dead zealot, dead probe. Second zealot actually came up. I was not expecting that. Wondering if Nesh was as well. 1 Marine does in fact die to this. 2 Marines actually get picked off. So that's at least something. But that was a pretty hefty early game investment, and Nesh got a lot of damage done. As far as delaying, so was there a second gate? I don't see a second gate. We do have cybernetics core, but Tim's Nexus severely delayed. Holy cow, is it delayed? Nesh a little bit delayed as well, obviously, because the initial 2 Zealot. But I'm not sure if Tim was intending to send that second Zealot out or not, and just ended up feeling a little I'm not sure how that went. It could be that Tim intended to send that second Zealot, and then that's what happened, or if he built the second Zealot and then it was just probe SCV shenanigans down here and then he went for it. But point being, as things stand, I think Tim is going to end up grabbing this Nexus much later than he had hoped for. Usually you want to be well ahead of your opponent's command center. Vulture, testing the front. It does not have mines yet, so it needs to be a little bit careful eating damage. I think he was hoping to find just Zealots there. Range not too far from finishing. Bunker up with 3 Marines in it. We do have an additional vulture and mines in the midst of this. An engineering bay fairly early. I think Nesh a little bit is going to respect DT play very early. That's a lot of DT respect. This is a pretty fast engineering bay to deal with that, but I'm wondering if this is also towards the ends of setting up a, also checking the north just in case. Yeah, Nesh is suspicious of something. He even pulled the Marines out of the bunker to make sure an additional Nexus wasn't grabbed out on the map. But Tim is playing honorably, as honorable as a Protoss effectively can. Second gateway interior to the main. Mines now out on the front. Good degree of map control here until that observatory is out. Nesh with a good amount of Marines. Is he going to go for drop again? He's got the 3 Vultures out on the field. Is going for Vulture speed. Still no siege tanks. And is plopping down some turrets underneath various floating buildings to provide a little bit of support. And a turret down on the low ground. Respect potential Dark Templar also to ward off any Reavers that might eventually sail that direction. We do have a 3rd gateway plopping down here for Tim. I think Tim's likely going to power. We'll see if he sticks to 3 and goes for the 3rd Nexus, or if he goes for 3, examines the situation, and then makes decisions from there. Second gas pretty rapidly grabbed here from Nesh. No additional machine shop. There is the armory. I think he is planning on going upgrade Terran here. Just given the architecture of the map and also how the early game went, oftentimes you can more easily pull that off, especially when you have map control for this long. Are there any mines left in these Vultures? Doesn't look like it. Might want to sail an additional mine to get the 6 o'clock and that 9 o'clock base tab. The Marines returning back to the protective cusp of that bunker. We also have that siege tank out in the front. Second factory getting dropped for Nesh, and the armory just finishing. First shuttle on the way for Tim. He's not making any motion, so he's got the observatory. He's playing this very carefully. Looks like he is going to go ahead and clear out the minefield. I wouldn't be shocked if he just... The one problem for upgrade Terran in plays like this is when you go for the armory and you invest heavily in the gas, that again limits your attack troop count. And so as long as you have 3 or 4 gateways of units pumped out, that oftentimes allows Protoss to pretty easily grab a 3rd without a lot of threat and fill in a lot of macro before there's really an opportunity to get anything else done. I'm wondering if Nesh is going to be able to sneak out one more Vulture in the midst of this. It looks like he's just pumping siege tanks right this second. Siege tank on the way. He doesn't have any mines left to potentially delay. It could be that the other option here is keep the Vultures active on the field, look for the timing when a probe is moving out, and then go try to swat that probe so there's a further delay in grabbing that 3rd base. But I think Tim going to play this carefully. At least that's the way it's looking right this second. He's got a few additional zealots and is now making his way across the meal. Is he going to go for an attack off this? 3 gate. He's got about 20 supply, but he's not scattering as though he's going to secure additional base. He's scattering as though he's pressing up. It could be because he sees this lack of siege, these tanks siege. Nesh does need to make sure. Yeah, Nesh is expecting additional base. Needs to get these tanks sieged. There's not a lot of reason to not have them sieged. And Tim might just find this beautiful timing where all the tanks, despite having siege tech, are not doing anything. We have the factory flood in the midst of this. I don't know why. I don't know what the logic of not having these tanks sieged and spread right this second is. Comsatting, maybe because he wants to move and try to pounce on Tim. But Tim, in the meantime, has actually a decent sized attack force. He doesn't have zealot leg speed, but with a handful of zealots crossing the forward barrier and dropping and clearing those mines, this could be a nice solid attack. And still no siege. Okay, now Nesh drawing his way back. Maybe he wanted to keep them active to deal with the potential Reaver. But now sieging, I think it's too little too late. And Nesh going to be able to walk into this. SCV's pulling into blockade. The Reaver was able to get through that network. Getting a good... That hit on that Reaver was huge. Nice blockading by the SCVs on the low ground. So Nesh might survive this regardless, but is taking pretty significant economic losses as a result. Siege tank's gone, never mind. Five Dragoons remaining, down to 33 SCVs. I'm not sure what happened there on Nesh's part and why he did not have some tanks sieged towards the front. Now he has that tank siege. Maybe he was expecting a heavier Reaver attack. The Vultures have snuck into the main, by the way, to try to get something done, but Tim able to clean that up. So we're looking like it's a similar situation to game 1. I'm wondering if that was just oversight, or I'm wondering if Nesh was just thinking this has to be a drop and nothing else, just a 3rd base and a drop, and so was expecting more play. But anyway, it's not a game-ending play right here, but Nesh is well down on workers right this second. Tim can easily grab this fourth now, or sorry, third. He could probably double expand. Nesh hurting on resources. He actually, I don't think he has enough SCVs to make, maybe for just a bunch of vultures and a siege tank. But he basically, and it looks like he is building a vulture off the machine shop, but effectively his factories are going to have to sit a minute while he resaturates. Push some vultures out, but not able to get that done. The Dragoons are going to be able to clean that up fairly easily. And that's unfortunate for Nesh, because I felt like he was actually in a very, very good position before that attack landed, and maybe just misread it. Was expecting more standard. It could be that he was expecting a much more rapid third, as is more typical with the current Protoss meta, rather than any sort of aggression there. But Tim read it right. He was looking at... He's like, okay, you're delayed on some siege tanks. You want to upgrade Terran in the midst of this, so let me just go ahead and poke and slam it. And he caught Nesh completely off guard. If those tanks were sieged, though, and spread out a bit, I think that was a completely different engagement. Bit of a scuffle across the mines as Tim pressing forward and grabbing the high ground. The vultures trying to find, knowing that there needs to be ground to be made up. One vulture sneaks in, but again with just 4 health. Getting stalked by a shuttle and some zealots. Able to get at least a worker kill. Nesh somehow has actually equalized the worker count decently, but he's still down a uncomfortable amount of supply. And he's anemic as far as the siege tank count goes. Things getting cleared out. We do have a random mine out here. I don't think that's going to be an X factor, though. It'll just see the probes as they're transferring to that 9 o'clock base nexus. I'm a little bit shocked that I think it's because this is a much longer second base in the midst of this. The supply count, I think, is a little bit deceptive here, because this is 5 siege tanks at the 12-minute mark. But I do want to say there's no Zealot leg speed, so this actually still might be scary. There are Zealot bombs, however, so Zealots making their way forward. Turrets hitting from multiple angles, and it's just Dragoons against siege tanks right this second. And yeah, Nesh should be able to repel this. Should be, is the critical bit. Never mind, there were fewer siege tanks than I thought. I thought there was one more siege tank somewhere in here. I don't know what happened to it. So Tim able to get another army poked in, but the mine's going to push this back. The observer waiting for that turret to get cleared before it pushes further in. Okay, now 3 siege tanks there to the north. But Tim doing a very successful job of clearing out the siege tanks once again. +1 weapons complete. 9 o'clock base is now humming for him. He's going to be able to find the engineering bay as well, which will prevent additional turrets from being planted, which is going to make a very fragile... Engineering bay has to be rebuilt from Nesh, because this is a very fragile front all of a sudden. Vulture is able to steam out. It's going to be able to see whether there's a 4th base anywhere out in the map for Tim, which will let him know his situation. Tanks scattering once again. Here comes Tim one more time, this time with Zealot leg speed, which is going to make this a much scarier attack. Zealots able to get on the low ground siege tanks, should be able to walk up to the high ground as well. The Dragoons, if they want to, can mix it up amongst the SCVs. And these are units that Tim can afford to throw away that Nesh cannot. Nesh needed to keep this Met count high, needed to keep the SCV count high. And he's going to lose these Zealots unless there's group repair, or lose these tanks to these Zealots as well. Unless there's group repair, and Dragoons now feasting on the SCVs on the low ground. It looks like Nesh doing a great job of staying alive. But in the midst of this, Tim feeling very confident and grabbing his 4th. Wondering if that vulture is going to be able to at least, or these vultures will be able to cycle around and discover it. Tim just starting to pour units out. What's his gateway count out? He's actually a little bit light on gateways, considering that he's running on 3 bases and about to have a 4th up. The vulture does discover that 4 o'clock base, but the problem for Nesh is he really can't do anything about it except maybe throw some vultures that direction. And he needs to keep them at home base to keep Tim from running him over. Because Tim off the 6 gateways just keeps pushing these units into the front, keeping Nesh honest, and basically has a soft contain as a result. Dark Templar nearby, by the way. Observer making its way back across to go ahead and clear. I think there was a Dragoon that was maybe lost. There's a mine, something went off there to give Tim pause. It is a matter of time for Tim. I want to make some fun about adding an E. Lost Dragoon there, but he's going to be able to have that fourth up. Or I should say time is on Tim's side, so the E is there, whatever. Bad commentator joke in the midst of this. The gateway is being tacked on. We are just seeing pure, never mind. There's the Arbiter. I was about to say, I was with that Dark Templar on the field, I'm like, where are the Arbiters? But it looks like we're seeing pure Gateway Man right this second, but there we got the Arbiter being fielded somewhat late, but it doesn't matter. And again, very nice little grouping of troops. +1 weapons finished, +1 armor complete for Nesh. And I'm wondering if he just has to go for it off the 5. A little bit late. It looks like he's, yeah, trying to just move out as best he can. I think he's hoping for a wedge. Some vultures are waiting for that probe transfer. I'm always amazed how the skilled Terrans can time this. But only 2 probes make it through. That was a big win, actually. Mitigating that 4th base and keeping it light as we approach the 17-minute mark is an opportunity for Nesh to start climbing back into this. He's got that 3rd base now at the 1 o'clock location, which is something. He's going to have to transfer SCVs there, potentially under fire, though. Tim maybe staging up to push the attack as they're making their way across. Actually, it looks like he's holding some more, the same vultures, holding the low ground. It looks like they're going to exit out. So Nesh has a 3rd base up. Now, with the 3rd base and a lot of siege tanks in the middle ground, what he can do, did he get the armory? Okay, he's got the starport, working on the science facility. That +2 is going to be late. Something he missed in the midst of this. That's unfortunate. I was going to say if he hit that +2 fairly quickly, what he could do is just sit back and try to max towards 200. But usually when you're doing that, what you're hoping for is your upgrades to just keep your Protoss opponent back, and unfortunately the upgrades are not there. Stasis, I believe, is upgraded. Tim's got a lot of units that he can start moving across the mid-ground to flood down into this as well. Now, does Nesh have enough for the short term? I don't think he does. Zealots able to make their way in. Not enough mines, not enough vultures, and the siege chain's going to clear out. That should be GG. As that 12 o'clock location will be breached by Tim shortly. Yes, yeah. GG right there. That's unfortunate because Nesh was in a really good spot at various points there. But well played from Tim. And I also want to make a side note. For a long time, I wanted to commentate some Tim games. And I'm glad I finally get to. So bonus there. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Tim will continue in the winner's bracket. Nesh, a big danger in the loser's bracket. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.